And then I promised to move on to the Finance Committee in response to the deputation. So that is item 15, page 141. RAF. Do you want to move? RAF moves and Andrew seconds. Okay. Item number 1, the Rod Donald Banks Peninsula Trust. Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed. CCHL, report on the performance of council-controlled trading organisations. Do you need a mover for each of these? Okay, Raf and Andrew again. I'll put that. No questions? Those in favour, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed? Carried. Item 3, moved the same people. The corporate finance report. Any questions? Okay, Jimmy.
Meeting particularly mentioned the appendix.
We didn't actually record that action from the meeting, from my memory, so apologies for that. Well, we'll get onto that and return the question to you. We did record a question from Councillor Johansson regarding some of the debts under the PX section, which we have responded to, but I'll take away your questions.
Thank you. I note that a wash-up payment was expected from the Crown in April, covering costs to 30th of June 2013, that we lodged the claim in September 2013. So government owes us 26 million, and it's almost over a year ago, nearly a year. So can you just advise, have they paid us the money? If so, great. If not, when can we expect it?
I can advise that they have not yet paid us the money, and that I have mentioned this as recently as Tuesday morning, again with Warwick Isaacs of Sarah, who is expediting the appropriation process to try and return to us that washed up money. But there is no, at this stage, ETA on that.
Right. So can I just ask, like, you know, clearly this is 26 million that they owe us. Have they given you any reason why they're not paying us this money? It's been since September 30th.
Yes, they have. Difficulty with the appropriations procedures and the ability of Sarah to pay under their current appropriation policy.
If we write to Jerry or what we do, but well, that's kind of where we've been from the committee to now. So I know, but it doesn't seem to be work. I mean, Peter's doing a great job, don't get me wrong. It just, I do wonder whether, given it's obviously an issue with appropriations, that it's something that needs to be raised with the Minister.
Just a quick question on it. Is it subject to interest?
Yes, it is.
Brilliant.
To the cost regarding to attachment 5, this building infrastructure improvement allowance fund. I'm still concerned, even we particularly mention here 3.2 and 0.2, any the insurance proceed for this project will be credited to the allowance as fund as received. I just want to know whether is there any council-owned community project has already received any the insurance claim from the insurer, or this fund looks like a borrowing but need to credit it to this fund. This is my concern. Yeah.
Thank you, Councillor. There's a couple of questions in there, and I'll try and answer each in turn. We have received some payments for insurance, mainly around where indemnity has been accepted, and we've received those payments. Not with respect to any of the amounts within this improvement allowance balance as such, so those asterisk amounts still remain waiting those. My understanding of this fund is that it is, or it was initially set up in 11-12 year with $150 million. It was added $25 million in 12-13 and a further $50 million in the 3-year plan, which is why the notional value of it is 225. It's not a fund of money that is readily available. In fact, it is quite the reverse. It is just an expectation that we will carry this as additional debt as we draw down on it. I think with that view around it, that we actually need to relook at what's commonly known as the Betterment Fund and the appropriateness of the level of it and the allocations within it as part of our overall financial strategy. So I'm very glad you picked up on the allowance, the improvement allowance balance.
Can I just ask a question in regards to, I'd be really keen to put a very tight time frame around this so that the tender process can happen quickly. So I just wanted to ask staff, can we put that we get this done within the next month? Or
That we can put on this tender process, Sue?
It would take 3 months for it to complete typically, but we could start immediately.
Is there any way, Yanni's question is in order to go through process but actually get the input of the person who's going to be occupying this into the redesign or the refit of Mona Vale? Is there any way in which it can be done faster than 12 weeks?
I'm sure there is. However, there is a requirement to put tenders out to market for a certain, I think it's 4 weeks. And the other point to make there is that to be involved in the fit out, it won't matter to the, so the fit out can start any time between now and maybe 12 months away. So it isn't, so they've done the designs, but the fit out itself takes place at the end of the repairs and strengthening work.
design?
Concern is around the fact that Mona Vale had a number of places that were completely useless, really. And what we're keen not to get is a replication of exactly those useless spaces. If I could be so bold. I mean, it was not designed as a cafe or used as a cafe originally. And there are some spaces that don't make sense to replicate exactly.
Well, we have the limitations around the heritage requirements, obviously.
Yes, although I don't know that all of those internal walls are necessarily heritage items. Tim?
An example would be the staff club at the university, which is a historic house, and that's been done extremely well. But I mean, it just seems logical that you would have the previous tenant giving some advice or input into how to improve the function, because at the end of the day we want the best return in a sensitive environment, and I mean we've got to get a good return on that investment. So is that part of the process, or is it totally independent of the previous user?
At the moment, the design has been made independently based on the intention, I guess, to have it as a venue, and to return it to the sort of the heritage and to return it to the state that it was in before. and there's been a lot of heritage input into that.
Okay.
So at the moment, the design has been done without consulting this is my understanding of it, I'm not the project manager, has been done without consulting a future tenant.
Further to that, does that mean then that, for example, the council's own sort of catering outfit, if you like, V-Base, to your knowledge, is not involved in the design component? I'm not talking about any financial or contractual arrangements.
Absolutely not. No,
Okay.
I'd be almost certain of that. It's been done by the heritage people and the engineering companies. So there's been no, as far as I'm
The reason I
aware.
ask that is because of the town hall and V-Base, I believe, involved in that. So I'm just wondering, and again, a heritage building there too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not
Okay.
that
Thank
I'm
you.
aware, no.
So to get a specific answer to Yanni's question, I appreciate that there's a need for us to go out to tender for a specific period, and you were suggesting that was 4 weeks, is that correct?
No, I said 3 months.
It would be 3 months
4
for the
weeks.
whole process
Yes,
from end to end?
yes, yes.
But the actual the advertised tender process is over a 4-week
It's
period?
typically,
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
And I would need to check on that to be absolutely certain.
And what work is needed as either end of that process? How could that be condensed to bring us to a point of less than 3 months? And what realistically would that length of time be?
Yeah. I mean, I can say something, but I can't be absolutely certain because that's not my area of expertise. However, the work that happens prior to the tender going out is around making sure that the evaluation criteria is well set. So it's understanding that a lot of discussion goes on with all of the people who are potential players in the process. So the program manager, the project manager, and also what the venue is going to be used for, and so understanding what the right evaluation criteria is. And a lot of that stuff's talked about in the report.
So a lot of that work has already been done.
Yeah, yes, it has. Yep.
So if we were to, I mean, for argument's sake, if we were to pass a resolution today that said that we wanted the whole tender process concluded within a 6-week period, would that be possible?
It's a
It's
tough
tight.
ask, I
Yeah,
think.
it's really tight.
Yeah, there needs to be a lot of thought put into the criteria around the leasing for the potential tenants. I mean, we're talking about a very specific building here with, very few potential operators, I would suggest.
Yeah, I mean, the point of view from which I'm looking at it, and I'm sure this was the spirit behind Councillor Johansson's question as well, is that we want the best result out of this.
Exactly.
And the way to get the best result is to get the operator involved in the development as early in the piece as possible. And that's why I'm suggesting that, if we were capable of doing that within 6 weeks, if we pull out all the stops, taking into account the importance and the uniqueness of this project, then in my view, that would be quite desirable.
I'd love to say yes, and I mean, I can say yes now, but I'm committing my staff to something that may not be possible. And so I would, I can't say an absolute yes. If it's possible, absolutely, yeah.
Thank you. My question, Sue, is about procurement practice, and I think I know the answer to this, but isn't it understood that good procurement practice, even if there is an existing supplier, involves the fact that you would benchmark against that supplier so that you wouldn't simply roll it over? And why I'm saying that is this is all about good practice, whole of life cost savings, which is what procurement's about.
Yep.
So actually you don't simply just roll a supplier over. Good practice, and they may end up with the being awarded it in the end, but you would at least have that by which others can be benchmarked.
So are you asking if we directly appoint, which is certainly a potential, a possible, if a supplier is directly appointed, then we do need to ensure that we go through value for money criteria. So we would benchmark and we would expect them to put in a proposal, basically, and
Yes.
against a set of criteria.
Yeah,
so they basically follow the same process.
Rather than simply rolling it over.
Yep.
Yeah. Thank you.
Sorry to harp on about it, but following on from Yanni's point, going the other way, we have an operator that operated the building for probably around about 30 years. They refitted it 15 years ago. They know the place intimately. Was it possible to contract them as a consultant to advise on the best way to to improve the faults that we had, because it seems if we don't do that, that one option is, as Andrew pointed out in Yarni, is that we speed up the process to get someone there who's going to run it. But the other way to do that is to bring the people that had it previously as a separate contractor or a consultant to advise on any issues, because we could be in danger of rebuilding and repairing the faults that the building had last time, irrelevant of the historical nature. I mean, as I said, Riccarton, the University Staff Club, is a historic building. They managed to do it. Surely we can work around some parameters as well, as long as we knew what the faults were.
I think
There'll be conflict.
There'll be probity issues.
Yeah, I think there would be. Because if we're going to go to market for a new tenant, then there's some probity issues around actually having that tenant involved pre the going to market, or while it's actually out in the market. So I don't think we could do that probity-wise.
But surely any advice from a consultant in an area like a kitchen or running a space like that, the advice that they would give would suit anybody that's running it and improve the function of that centre?
It would, however, it does give them a perceived advantage.
So technically we can't get any advice really on how to improve that function from anyone that's used it.
You could probably get advice from another external contractor. It wouldn't necessarily need to be the previous tenant, but I understand where you're coming from. Somebody with experience,
Yep.
Yeah,
specialist in the field.
Yeah, I think that, the opportunity to work around the design with whoever the tenant is really the key thing here. So what we want is this building to have, a future life for at least the next 100 years, if not longer. And the only way we're going to do that with a heritage building is to make sure we've got a sustainable, productive use. So working with the tenant is the key thing. So I think, certainly if we can speed up the tendering process, then the sooner we get the tenant in place, the sooner they can work around the design elements. I just wanted to ask staff though, the comment was made in the deputation that the V-Base Cafe or the Botanic Gardens Cafe went through a closed tender to V-Base. In your view, how is that justified compared to not going out for an open tender versus this project? Can you just help me understand why staff have recommended that this one goes out for open tender, but the V-Base Botanic Gardens one was a closed process? And I don't even know if it went out for tender. That was one question raised. So maybe if you could just explain if that went out for tender, or even if it was closed tender, or whether it was just selected, and what the difference is.
as far as, well, it was in public excluded, but it didn't go out for public tender, to my knowledge. In fact, I'm certain it didn't go out for public tender. It was a council decision.
It was based on staff advice. And staff
But the
No, it was why staff recommended. What I'm trying to understand is what...
There was a lot of rationale behind it at the time. That's...
Being a new building and...
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, quick comment on that. And while we're talking about irrelevant things, just in response to that, then I just did want to say then that exactly what you said, this other issue that we're not debating was a council decision made with the V-Base directors taking zero part in that as well. But anyway, back on track. I just did want to make a comment because I think what's been mentioned is extremely pertinent, and of course we want to ensure the best outcome for the community and have a functional building throughout this repair process. The repair and refit though of Monavale, this is more a comment for colleagues than anything else, but is a long haul game. That's not going to be done in 4 months. It's going to take a very long time, and my understanding is that staff are extremely cognizant of having the tender process expedited as more truncated as much as possible to have them on board earlier. I'd prefer that we're not paying consultancy fees, that we have the tender process done, dusted, and then whoever wins that, and again, may I say that probably the track record of the past operator will count in their favour. But that's, again, aside from it. So you'd want to have them involved at the start, but the tender process is a very small portion of the repair and refit of Monavale. So would it give you comfort even if we had perhaps just a point that, you know, staff provide best endeavours to expedite the tender process, because that gives you some scope, and we can't bind you to things, you know, or timeframes that we're actually unaware of, and you're best placed to make that call. But obviously, you know, you want to have the tender won early on and then have that operator without paying consultancy fees. You'd want that person there that's got a vested interest because they've been selected to ensure that they have something functional to work with to be able to operate it effectively.